Join me on the next episode of Quarantined with Lavell as we continue our Black History Month celebration, talking to marriage and family therapist Tanya Troup, all the way from Las Vegas, Nevada. Tanya is my cousin, and she has spent a decade working in a variety of settings, from children's groups to one-on-one counseling to couples therapy to detention centers with a focus on behavioral and mental health. And we are going to be talking to her about men and mental health. You do not want to miss this episode. So join us live on Thursday, February 18th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Kneel Down Productions Facebook group page, as well as the Kneel Down Productions YouTube channel. Spread the word, and we'll see you on the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Quarantined with Lavell. Listen, we truly appreciate each and every one of you for so faithfully tuning in and sharing out the information. Y'all making me feel special. So thank you all so much for everything that you do. We truly appreciate you. Amen. We had 31 episodes in our season 1. So if you're a new watcher, then go back and look at some of those episodes. Look at all of those episodes. All right. It was some really good stuff. And we kicked off season 2. Awesome. All right. We hit it hard, and we are continuing to go hard. Amen. We are on, I believe this is episode 7 already in season 2. So again, thank you all so much for tuning in. I definitely appreciate each and every one of you. I'm waiting on that text from my wife to let me know everything is going smoothly. And then we are going to proceed, and we are going to go on with the show. We have a very special guest on tonight, and I'm excited that she's joining us in the studio tonight. So we definitely appreciate her, and we're going to talk to her in just a minute. All right, listen, I definitely got to give my shout out. So definitely a shout out to my lovely, amazing wife, LaKenya, who is also executive producer of the show. She is on me. She helps me organize the guests, gets the questions together, gives me the thumbs up on my phone when things are going well. So we appreciate that. She prays with me before every single show. So I truly thank God for her. Also, if I'm running a little behind, she'll knock on if I'm in the bathroom or in the room or whatever, getting ready or dressed, she will definitely let me know. All right, sweetheart, you only got a couple of minutes. Make sure you start on time. So appreciate her for that. As well, I have to give a shout out to my son, who, guess what, y'all? He will be 6 months old on Saturday. Can you all believe that? he was actually born almost on the show, right? The day of the show. The show airs every Thursday live, and he was born on a Thursday. So you all got a chance to see him when he was about 6 or 7 hours old, right? So you all can go back to the August 20th episode in season 1, and you'll be able to see little Emmanuel when he was just a couple of hours old. And as you all know on Facebook, I post pictures all the time, and we'll be doing 6-month pictures with him coming up this Saturday, and we'll be posting those Saturday evening or Sunday morning. So definitely got to give a shout out to my mom and my mother-in-law as well. They are avid viewers of the show. Got to give a shout out to my uncle who calls all around the country. Literally, I'm not even exaggerating, to get people to tune in and to watch the show. So I appreciate my Uncle Neil for all that he does. And also my Auntie Linda. Got to give a shout out to her. She's a faithful viewer of the show. And it is actually her daughter that is going to be on the show tonight. So in honor of that, I know you all know that Auntie Linda was my sponsor, was the sponsor for the show for October, November, and December of last year, and I always give her a shout out, but I want to definitely make sure that I give her a shout out for this show. Let me put her information up. Custom Designs by Linda. Listen, my Auntie Linda is amazing. She custom makes jewelry. Whatever you need. It can be elegant jewelry that you need for elegant night out. It could be casual jewelry, whatever you need for men and for women. So make sure that you contact my Auntie Linda. Go to her website. It's customdesignsbylinda.com. You can give her a call at 888-443-7773. Schedule your free 20-minute consultation. And listen, if you mention to her that you saw this on Quarantine with Lavell, she will give you that nephew's discount. So make sure that you go to her website, customdesignsbylinda.com, or give her a call at 888-443-7773 to make sure that you schedule that free 20-minute consultation. And now a word from our sponsor for this month.
Inspire God's People, the podcast, was founded by Christian rapper and business professional J. Will Music with the purpose of helping Christians balance faith and business. Each episode sets out to challenge and encourage you to think beyond your current limitations by activating biblical principles. J. Will's unique approach to storytelling paints a vivid picture of success and the many ways it can be applied directly to your life. Inspire God's People is a one-of-a-kind production with life-changing material that adds a perfect blend of inspiration and comedy, and your host will introduce you to various perspectives and tools to help you grow in godly wealth. Visit InspireGodsPeople.com and follow J. Will on Instagram at Mr_Bellwether to get connected to your future and your destiny.
Yes, so definitely make sure you check out that website, which is InspireGodsPeople.com. Make sure that you check that out. Sorry, I'm trying to get situated here. All right, sorry about that. All right, yeah, InspireGodsPeople.com, and you can follow J. Will on Instagram at InspireGodsPeople or at Mr_Bellwether. A bellwether is a sheep that is the leader of the flock. So I thought that was a very unique name. That was also the name of his clothing line he had for a while, Bellwether. So make sure you check out at Mr_Bellwether. And you can go to his YouTube page and type in J. Will Music. That's one L, JWIL Music on YouTube. And he is our sponsor for this month. All right. Listen, we're going to jump right in. You all saw the commercial, and you know that we have a very special guest on tonight. She is a marriage and family therapist all the way from Las Vegas, Nevada. So please help me welcome my cousin, Tanya Troup. Tanya, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Cousin Lavell. I'm so excited about this experience here. I
Awesome,
appreciate you for
awesome.
allowing me to be on here.
Yes.
Thank you.
It is my honor. Your mom actually suggested it, and I was so glad. I was so glad that she did, because I'm always looking for guests that have something that's unique to talk about to our audience. And we cover a variety of things. And if people just
Right.
go back and look at some of the episodes, I believe that they can get a full, well-rounded experience. And you are no different. So I definitely appreciate you
Yes.
being on the show. So you're a marriage and family therapist, and remember
Yes.
that you said that you've been working like for the last 2.5 years in like the detention facilities, and
Yes.
your caseload is like 90% men. So I felt like, wow, let's talk about men and mental health on tonight.
Yes.
So.
Yes. It's very important. And I was actually in the rural parts of Nevada. So that clientele is even more different in terms of, they have a little bit more challenges in terms of not being in the inner city, or major city where they have access to mental health. And so, of course, men and mental health, that's somewhat of a taboo, and there's a lot of stigmas attached to it. So being in a detention center makes that even more difficult. So
Mm.
having the therapy available to them, allowed them to remove or to get a better understanding and feel more comfortable with speaking about some of the issues that they were facing, which in turn a lot of them actually got them in the detention center, not dealing with some
Mm.
of these things. Yes,
Gotcha. All
yes.
right.
So
Well, listen,
so it's very eye
before
opening for
we
me.
Yes. All right. So before we jump in, because I know you're ready to jump in, and I'm ready to jump in. So before we jump in, why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll
Okay.
jump in. I have like a list of questions here, and we'll
Okay.
talk about these questions and anything else that you want to talk about.
Okay. All right. Well, you did such a great job with the introduction with the commercial and with starting off. You covered a lot about me, so thank you. But yes, I currently live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I've been there since 2004. I'm originally here from Michigan right now, which I'm back home visiting. And then I lived in Atlanta for 15 years prior to going to Las Vegas, Nevada. So all of these three places are definitely entwined in my experience with life and,
Right.
and things that I've come across. Yes, so I did not choose to be a therapist. Being a therapist chose me, this career, this path, and I'm so blessed for that for my purpose to find me. For 11 years, I worked for a behavioral health agency. And in that time frame, I was able to work with children, which at one point I kind of was a little strayed away from doing that, but I actually enjoyed that quite a bit, working with the kids and allowing to see, I mean, being able to see at some time some of the seeds that were planted, so to speak, seeing some of
Hmm.
that harvest. But in, over time, over duration of time, seeing those things harvest, but just to know that you were a part of instilling some things in them that they will be able to use going forward in life, and helping them get through some of the experiences and tragedies for a lot of them that they had experienced at such an early age, tragedies and traumas that they experienced at
Hmm.
such a younger age. So that was definitely rewarding. And I used to say as a when I was in high school, you say, "Oh, I wanted to be a child psychologist," and I never really, other than saying that, over than the surface level of that, and having a class in high school, that was pretty much it. But then later on in life, that came back and found me. Now, I'm not a psychologist. I went to school for marriage and family therapy, but
Hmm.
who knows? Maybe one day. But
All right.
who knows? And so, but I work for behavioral health agency. Mental health is what's the focus, and dealt with a variety of clients. Like I said, children, marriage therapy as well. So couples therapy, individual one-on-one, with a lot of people having a range from anything, from mostly anxiety, depression, PTSD, some stages of bipolar, and a lot of that, were childhood rooted issues that came to surface, for in the adult age. And let's see. And that's been experiencing, like, and up until the past 2 years. Well, not up the last 2.5 years. I was working in a detention center, as you stated. So that brought me into a completely whole different population. And when
Mm.
I thought years ago, when I started in school and I thought about being a therapist, I pictured myself sitting in some fancy office wearing fancy suits and the client sitting, laying on the leather couch telling me their problems, and I'm sitting with my notepad and listening. No, nothing like that at all. Had you told me I was going to be in the jails and doing what I was doing, I would have said, get out of here. But it
Mm.
was so rewarding for me, so because it's all, we're all going through things, or will at some point, experience some of the same emotions and that sort of thing. So once you remove the fact that they're in jail and what they're there for, they're just, it's a very thin line. So, with some of the instances on how they ended up there. You're going down the road and we decided to turn right and they went left,
Mm.
and their life ultimately they ended up where they were at that point in time. So it was definitely a great, rewarding, eye-opening learning experience for me as well.
It's funny you were when you were talking about the children. It's
Mm-hmm.
funny. My mother-in-law and my mother, they always say that our baby, who will be 6 months old Saturday, they always say he is such a happy baby. And
Mm-hmm.
I used to think that was an odd thing to say. It was like, aren't all babies happy? But then it began to dawn on me that they're not. Not all children are happy. Not all children have good homes. And I'm not just talking about the single parent household. I was raised in a
Mm-hmm.
single parent household, and I was
Mm-hmm.
happy, and the Lord really, really blessed. And we actually had a
Mm-hmm.
guest on 2 episodes ago, Dr. Sabrina Jackson, who wrote a book called "He Is Not a Statistic: 12 Laws for Single Mothers Raising Black Males." And that was a
Wow.
excellent episode.
Yeah,
So I'm not
yeah.
talking about just because a child is raised in a single home. They can be raised in a home with a mother and father and still
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
be happy. So
Yes.
you kind of answered my second question, but if you want to elaborate, you can, which is
Okay.
what made you want to go into the field of therapy?
Okay. Yeah, well, like I was at a point in my life, I originally went to school for fashion design, well, fashion
Mm.
marketing, I'm sorry, and business administration. I wanted to do fashion design, but I couldn't draw. So I took the next the next step, which was fashion marketing. And I was really passionate about that and still am in some
Mhm.
respects. But then I reached kind of a crossroad, and I was looking to go back to school and advance my degrees. And
Mm.
so I initially went to get my MBA, to get my master's in business, because that aligned with one of my bachelors that I had. And I went in that class, and I felt like they were speaking different languages, 10 different languages simultaneously. And
Mm.
I was just like, oh, this is just not for me. So I went back to the academic counselor at the time, and we kind of went over some things. And they kind of went through some of the work that I had been doing in the fields. And it's like, well, you may be really interested in doing the marriage and family therapy. And they kind of broke that down to me. I said, you know what? I think so. And first class in, loved it. I was able to resonate with everything. It just grabbed me in. It was almost like love at first sight. And that was it. That was how
Nice.
that happened. Yep, that was how that happened. And, I want to piggyback on what you were saying about happy children, and that,
Mm.
they, all babies do not come out happy, and all children are not happy, and that has a lot to do with the environment. But that environment starts in the mother's womb. And
Mm.
so if there is chaos in a mother's life prior to her having a baby, that's going to be an issue. If there were any sort of substance abuse, whether that was alcohol, drugs, opiates, or nicotine, those
Mm.
children automatically come into the world with an addiction.
Wow.
And then that addiction is obviously not going to be fed, so to speak. So
Hmm.
right there, they are not happy, and caffeine as well. I left that out. Caffeine and nicotine and heroin being the top one for drugs are the ones to kick, the hardest ones to kick. And so if any of those things were present during gestation and while the mother was pregnant, and present to an abusive state, codependent state, then again that baby automatically comes out of attic and not happy.
Wow. Wow.
Hmm.
That is wow. Yeah, and it was funny because my wife laid off of the caffeine.
Hmm.
She loves coffee, so she
Right.
laid off of the caffeine. I don't remember exactly when. It wasn't the entire
Hmm.
pregnancy, but she wanted to make
Hmm.
sure that nothing like that happened. So thank
Right.
God.
Right. Yes. Yes. Because it's real. It's real. And a lot of that. They put out warnings and give some education, but I'm not sure if in some areas, especially rural areas, where people don't have access to resources, where they really explain to them what the potential outcome can be from not using some of those things. And caffeine might be something that they don't stress enough. And people think, oh well, I could drink a Coke a day or drink this a day, a Pepsi, a Coke a day or whatever, and at least I'm not smoking, at least I'm not doing alcohol or drugs. But
Mm,
caffeine withdrawals are real, and caffeine withdrawals are difficult, quite difficult to
wow.
get through. Yeah, and so if you're used to having that every day and now you don't have it, all those receptors in your brains and all that, your dopamine, your endorphins, everything is out of whack. And so you will be cranky and not happy.
Yes, yes. I remember this was maybe, I don't know, 15 years ago or so. I used to love Mountain Dew. I mean, like
Hmm.
I would drink 3 or 4 a day. I was just
Right.
addicted. And my church went on a fast, and we had to give up.
Hmm.
Caffeine was one of the things, and I had a headache for
Yes.
5 days straight,
Yes.
nonstop. And I was like,
Yes.
what is happening? And when the fast ended, I never went back. I never
Hmm.
started back drinking. I, I,
Hmm.
I do drink pop, but I drink non caffeinated pop,
Right.
but like Mountain Dew, Pepsi, Coca, all of that stuff. I did not go back because I never wanted to go through that again.
Yeah, the withdrawals are horrific. If your body is used to you dealing with anything consistently in an excess amount for days and months and years at a time. So imagine, for you, off of Mountain Dew, that was difficult for 5 days. Just imagine, someone who has smoked for 20 years of their life
Mm,
and
wow.
going through that withdrawal, right? So the withdrawal is harder. And so if you could get through it, then it's great. And don't go back to it because but oftentimes people can't get through it. And
Yeah.
that's what makes it very difficult. Yeah.
And I think this is something that I think the black community needs to know this. We're celebrating
Yes.
Black History Month, and like you said, we could say, well, I'm not smoking, but you're still
Mm-hmm.
causing your child to get addicted to
Mm-hmm.
this caffeine, and
Mm-hmm.
I, it's selfish. You're
Yes.
drinking it
Yes.
because you want it, but you're causing
Right.
a reaction in your child. So I think we have to be very, very careful.
We do. We need to. And it boils down to some of the simple things. I talk about this all the time. My child, my baby, well, he's 24, but but, but I still call him my baby.
Right.
But the thing everything that I craved when I was pregnant with him
Mhm.
is his favorite foods. They're all his favorite foods. And so
Wow.
if right, I mean they're all, and I don't know if a lot of mothers have, actually looked into that to think, once their kids get older, and they start saying, oh, I like this and I like this, and they go back and realize, well, that was what I ate the majority of the time I was pregnant with you. Well, the same is true for substances, whether it's alcohol, whether it's,
Mm,
I left out sodium, but
mm,
that's a big one as well,
mm.
and especially in our community. We don't like anything if it's not seasoned, and so
Right.
and sometimes over seasoned. So that all those things play a big part, and it plays a big part in your behavior, in your mental health, in your attitude, in everything. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. All
Yes.
right. So my next question, and we talked about this in the commercial, and you mentioned it a little
Hmm.
bit, but you've dealt in many areas of therapy, children's groups, one-on-one, couples therapy, detention centers. Which one of those, or which ones of those, are your favorite or favorites?
Definitely the children's group. Now that requires a different amount of constitution and fortitude in terms of your personal energy level. But and so
Okay.
that yeah, so that adds on. a bigger challenge. How kids they can pull on energy strings that you did not know you had, and so at the end of the day, you feel like you ran a marathon and
But,
you were sitting most of the day. Yeah, so mental exercise is huge in terms of dealing with the kids in the groups. But I did enjoy that very much. And then the detention center, I would have to say, those are they closely run together. But the detention center might edge it out just a little bit. Might be my first, and then the kids, close second.
got you.
Yep.
All
So,
right.
and
So,
101 is enjoyable as well. 101 is all of it
okay.
is all of it. I love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, all of it.
Excellent. I'm trying to see who made this comment here, but someone said, very good teaching, Tanya. So true. As a nurse, I've seen the effects of withdrawals in babies and adults, and it is terrible.
Yes.
I don't know who made that comment. It just says Facebook user, but I don't know if it's my mother or whatnot. But I mean, and that is true. Those effects in babies and adults is a terrible thing.
It really is. It really is. And I can speak for myself, like you talked about your wife with caffeine and you with
Hmm.
Mountain Dew. I can be the same way with coffee. Like, I really love my coffee. And at
Gotcha.
times my relationship with Pepsi can be something else. So me and my mother, we would enjoy having us a good Pepsi with some
Yeah, right.
nothing like it. Yes, but those headaches they come and get you, and you really can't even, in terms of any painkiller or anything like that, they don't really hold a candle to that type of caffeine withdrawal at all. They
Mm,
don't really even work on it. Yeah. Yes.
yeah. All right. So I'm trying to. My wife just texted me, said that was my mom. So,
Okay.
mom, you got to click on that link there, and it'll put your name up there. That way, I don't have to guess who's commenting there. But okay, I see it now. It's on the kneel down page. Yeah. Okay. Good. So I'm working with two computers here. I want to make sure that I know who's commenting or whatnot. So
Right.
all right. So all right. Let's move on here. So the next thing I wrote down here, many men, and we're gonna jump on into this men and mental health. Many
Mm-hmm.
men see it as being weak for a
Yes.
man to go to therapy. How
Yes.
important is it for
It is.
men to seek therapy when needed?
It is extremely important, and reason being is because as a society, and most men, not all, but a great
Mm,
deal of men were taught at a very young age that crying is weak, or you're acting like a girl, or to shake it off and to suppress those
mm,
feelings. And so they start at a very young age. That at a very young age, that conditioning does. And but what happens is that over time, anything that came to a man in terms of that made him sad or made him fearful,
mm,
that turned into anger. And so anger is a secondary emotion. Anger is masking sadness and fear. And we all, as human beings, experience sadness and fear. But for man, it is there, just like you said, it is considered to be weak, it's considered to be soft. But it's
mm.
socially acceptable for men to be angry. Now,
Wow.
being angry is okay because that's an emotion that we all experience as well, but it's what you do with that anger, how you act out that anger, how you exhibit that anger that can lead to terrible consequences, which is how
Mm,
most of the men that are in the detention center ended up there. They were masking feelings and emotions and thoughts and things that happened maybe earlier on or not even earlier on, but they were suppressing those feelings of sadness and fear. And they may have been most likely suppressing those feelings with a substance. And so then now
mm,
you add that substance and you add the underlying feeling, which is sadness and fear, and that equates to anger, and then that makes a bad combination, substance and
mm.
anger, and that's how we see our jail cells filled to this day for most of those
Wow.
reasons. hmm And
Yeah.
so there was a documentary that is on HBO. I want to say it came out years ago, but it was called "Taking Off the Mask." And which is interesting now that we're in this stage, we're in this period where we have to wear the mask, but it is removing the mask and actually talking about what is really the issue. So if you think about a cake and you think, the cake is, the main thing underneath, and then it's covered with frosting. And so you don't know what that cake is until you cut into it, what type of cake it is, unless someone tells you, obviously, but you don't know until you cut into it. But those underlying issues are what is really taking place, and it's just covered with anger.
Yeah, my late pastor preached a message one time called "Dealing with the Root of the Issue," and I really enjoyed the message. But it really came to me when I was out digging up weeds in the yard one day, and I was out there digging up these weeds, and I remember one year I just was kind of cutting them, and I noticed that a couple months later they were right back. And but once I pulled them up by the root, they never came back, right? Because you have to deal with the root of the issues, and we don't like dealing with the root of the issue because it turns a mirror on ourselves, and we honestly don't like to see ourselves in a negative light. But if we can take a look at that mirror image, deal with the root of the issue, then we can get to the point where we receive our healing.
Yes. And that's absolutely true. And we have, it goes all the way back to, I get really deep in thought with some of these things, but there's so many things that a negative connotation has been put to, and it's not negative. It is a human experience. But because society has now deemed this as, if you have this feeling, this is negative, this is not. And so then people become shameful. A lot of these feelings are rooted in shame from a thought, from a premise that someone decades ago, who knows when, deemed that these things are negative for us to have and feel. We all are very multifaceted. We all have positive days, negative days. We all, have a side of us that some parts of society would shun upon, but we all have it. It's we're all equipped and have it that way. So, but again, it's how you exhibit it that would determine, how it's perceived, so to speak. And so once you remove that shame from a lot of this old thinking, a lot of this old doctrine that is not relevant or was never beneficial or helpful for us to begin with, and instead of just sweeping things under the rug and we don't talk about this, or we only pray, and trust and believe me, praying is the top thing, but then you need other things to help that foundation, and being able to rely on those things to help you sustain that your prayers being answered, because if you don't have that other foundation there, and God has granted you and answered your prayers, but you are not equipped to even deal with it, you're going to mishandle it. And so it's just the truth.
Absolutely.
And so we really have to get to the root of that and address all of those feelings and just acknowledge them, rather and decide whether or not this is a rational thought. Is this something where did I get this from? And is this working? How is that serving me? And if it's not serving me, then let's make an adjustment to it. But if you never want to address it, you're never going to be able to deal with it at all. So I have taken it upon myself to deal with some of the things that were being deemed as not a good part or whatever, because if I don't do it for myself, then as a therapist, how am I going to assist other people in doing it? So we really have to take a deeper look and look at the other side of us, other sides at times of us. Yep.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
Not just cutting off that weed. It just that's just the surface. You got to dig down in there and get that root out. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So actually my mother-in-law asked a question on the other page, so it didn't pop up here. She's on my page. But she says, is it better for a man to see a male therapist for better understanding? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's all based on an individual basis, all based on comfortability, So There were some men that were in the detention center that felt more comfortable with speaking to me about certain issues, because sometimes as women, we don't necessarily judge as much, especially if we're not men. So how
Mhm.
men view the world and the way they experience it, it's as women, we don't, and so we're able to be a little bit more unbiased and less judgmental in some respects. In other
Mhm.
respects, depending upon, a man would feel more comfortable with speaking with another man. I will tell you, and this topic is a little uh touchy and can be sensitive, but in terms of a lot of the questions that we have to answer when we're going through the initial eval, the first two questions are: have you experienced any physical abuse, and have you experienced any sexual abuse? And
Mm.
so and so for another man, especially in a detention center, speaking on those things would make it difficult in some respect to talk to another man about that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yep.
Um, yeah. Yeah, yeah, I can see that. That makes sense.
hmm
When I was talking to Dr. Sabrina a couple of weeks ago, because I
hmm
know some men, some people say that a woman can't raise a man, a male child. My mother did a phenomenal job, but God
hmm
did allow
hmm
her the wisdom and insight to allow certain men in my life that I needed
hmm
to help me
hmm
grow and to help me with the men things. And
Right.
Dr. Sabrina, was saying that same thing. Her son, she said, asked her a question one time that was way out of, it was like a sexual question.
hmm
And it made her, she was like, you need to go talk to your uncle.
Right. Right. Right.
But
You
as
need to go
far as
talk to somebody
men,
in the village.
right. But as
Right, in the
far as
village.
like men in detention centers, yeah, I think, yeah, I can see them being a little more comfortable sometimes talking
hmm
to a woman as opposed to a man, because again, and we have to figure out how, and that kind of leads into my next question. Um, the next question is, in your professional opinion, how can we begin to break the stereotype of thinking men are weak if they seek help? And we have this thing. It's like, if I need help, then I'm weak,
hmm
right? If
hmm
I need help,
Right.
then I'm weak. But
Right.
how can we begin to break that? In your professional opinion, what can we do to start breaking that mentality throughout? Well, let's just say our people.
Right. Well, right. Our
Amongst
people,
our
yes,
people.
for sure. Right. And then and that's one of the biggest challenges. A part of 2020, a part of what came from 2020, actually started, I want to say, back in like 2018, 19. Really, mental health campaigns had really started coming through, and mental health campaigns focusing on having more Black therapists. And so there are a lot of different groups that have started in order to help with that. But one of the main things is that I am really big on using analogies, but analogies that are relative to certain things to help change that mindset. And so if it's speaking to, well, first of all, actually it's just talking about it. And there's a slogan that's been
Mm,
around for a minute now, and it's called "It's okay not to be okay." And all of us,
mm,
again, as a human being, we're not going to be okay sometimes. And, I would tell the men that were there in the detention center, and I would break it down and say, if you were not meant to experience sadness or to experience fear or to cry, it would just been made to where you did experience it. Just like you can't have children, just like you cannot have a menstrual cycle. If men were not
mm.
supposed to experience those things, those emotions, you wouldn't have it. So
Right.
right there, it is a human being thing, and not just something, versus what a man can't or shouldn't do versus a woman. But then the other thing that I skipped around a little bit, but in terms of analogies, is that, let's say a man is wanting to, be on a NFL team, or be on an NBA team, or whatever, some major like sporting thing, whatever the case may be, or not even that, be a doctor, be a teacher for that matter. They need help. It's all in how we look at help. So they need education. They need to, have resources to certain information in order to get themselves to that level of being a teacher. That's the same thing. Those resources are the same thing as help. You know, when you're in these training camps or in these boot camps or going to practice for the big game, for that game on Sunday, and you're practicing all through the week, practice is help. Practice is to help building you to be able to perform in the game that you're wanting to play in and that you're wanting to be successful in. So it's removing that negative, looking at it like, you need to practice. You need to practice throwing. You need to practice running. That's help.
Mhm.
If that makes sense, but that
Mhm.
that is help. And so it's the same in towards of having a healthy mental mindset. We need help sometimes, and we need help from people who can provide a different perspective, who can help us train a little bit harder to help us perform better. And that's
Mhm.
really all it is. Yeah. And so it's just looking at
Yeah.
it in a different way instead of it being weak. Is no, you're adding things to your toolbox. If you want to build something, you can't just build something off of a Phillips screwdriver, off of flathead. Sometimes you need
Mhm.
some other tools to help you accomplish that. And so
Absolutely.
putting having mental health or having a therapist in your toolbox to help you get to a mental healthy state, well, then you just got that tool to do the job.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that answered her second question, which was
Mm-hmm.
how can a man overcome sadness and fear?
Mm-hmm.
How can
The
a man overcome
overcome
sadness and
and
fear?
just acknowledging it. And so, yeah,
Mm.
acknowledging,
And that's the hardest
oftentimes
part.
it is. But
Yeah.
once you get over that, once you say, this makes me sad, you will find out that that makes a lot of people sad, whatever that situation
Mhm.
may be, or this, I'm fearful of this. And the way to tackle fear really is to, first of all, see if it's rational or not, because a lot of times we're fearful of things that never come to fruition. We've just in
Mm.
our mind have gone all the way to the most extreme outcome of something,
Right.
and it's not, it's like dealing with a dog that looks big and angry. Then you actually get up
Mhm.
to the dog, and all it was the bark and
You're
not a
right.
bite there. And so it's really saying, okay, let me break this down. Is this a rational thought at all? And then if it is, okay, what is going to be the worst case scenario on that? And then at that point, once you figure that out, well, is the solution to the worst case scenario? And once you're able to break that down and say, okay, yeah, there's a solution to that, or what is the likelihood of this happening? And it's
Mhm.
and it's the probability is very low. You immediately diminish a lot of the fear that's there. But it's the hardest part, which is easier said than done, is just
Mhm.
acknowledging it and talking about it to someone.
Yes, definitely.
Yes,
And
yes.
and and I think that goes for any whether
Anybody.
we're addicted to something,
Hmm. Hmm.
whether we are wrong in an argument with our spouse, whatever it
Right,
is.
right.
Acknowledgement is the very first thing you have to do, and it's the hardest thing. But
Hmm.
like you said,
It
once
is.
you get over that hump, then
Hmm.
everything else just kind of
Yeah.
it makes it easier to flow in.
It is. Yeah. Once you tell your story or tell whatever, once you tell it to the first person, if someone was abused or they felt they were neglected in their childhood or anything, then once you get that story out and get it from out of you the first time, every time after that is easier.
Mm,
Especially when you're dealing with someone that is compassionate, that can sympathize and or empathize. And we're in a day and
mm,
age where people can do both. It may not be the exact same story, but they may check off some of the mark. They may check off more markers than not, and people
mm.
will be very surprised in realizing uh how much people are actually just open and just human beings really tapped into. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm sure that was pretty bad for you, and just
Mm.
and allowing you to just everybody just wants to be heard and
Yeah,
understood.
yeah.
We don't, and I always use this thing, oftentimes, you can understand something and not like it or not agree with
Mm,
it, and I will use the speed limit for that example. I
mhm.
like a fast car, but the
Ah,
speed limit is in place. I understand why that speed limit is there. I don't always
mhm.
like it. but I
Right.
understand it, you know. And so being able to just hear somebody out and or someone hearing you out and get out, whether just like you said in the arguments, whether they agree with it or not, you still just want to be heard and understood. And they don't have, you know, you can agree to disagree, but as long as that they can at least say, okay, well, I heard you, and I understand
Yeah.
where you're coming from. I don't experience that, or I don't, but I understand that for you.
Mhm.
That once
Absolutely.
you receive that, everything else is easier.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, now you told me that for the last 2.5 years that you've been working in the jails and detention
Mhm.
centers. My mom actually is a nurse that worked in the jail system here for
Okay.
over 20 years, and now she works with the youth
Hmm.
in jail. This,
Yes.
the same
Wow. Yes.
jail
Yes.
scenarios. So I might have to
She
have her on the
understands
show
big
one
time.
day, right?
Yes. 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 Your mother sympathizes and empathizes. Speaking of,
Yes,
with yes,
definitely.
with what I'm talking about. Yes, for sure.
But you told me that 90% of your caseload is men. So my question is, like, how does that tie in with
Mhm.
men and mental health? How does the fact that 90% of your caseload are men, how does that
Mhm.
tie in with the whole theme of men and mental health?
Well, okay, so first 90% is due to population, you know. So the female inmate numbers are a lot less low than the I worked in co-ed jail. So the female
Okay.
population is a lot lower than men, but reason being why the female population is a lot lower, and this is how it ties into mental health, is that women, it is socially acceptable for women to express her sadness and express her fear,
Mm,
which in turn, she is not going to act it out via anger in a way that is going to end her up in jail.
wow. Wow.
And so that's why the numbers are staggering as they are between the two, because men have been told or have been taught
Mhm.
to suppress that fearness and that sadness, but they acted it out via anger, and anger behavior can lead you to extreme consequences.
Mm,
Whether that is bodily harm, killing someone, you know, the fear or sadness of not being able to provide. So then now
mhm.
they're doing it in an illegal way because they don't know any other way to do it, but they know that they need to do it, and they haven't talked about that. I'm fearful that I won't be able to provide for my family. So in turn, or I won't have enough. So in turn, instead of me going to get this regular 9 to 5 job, let me sell drugs. Let me
Mm,
rob in order to do this. And men are more apt to do that than women are,
mm.
because men are known as the providers. And so, however, they have to get it and do it, they will. And if they don't
Yeah.
have the resources or the knowledge base or the experience or any, you know, or people support is what I'm looking for to help them take some other routes, it is a survival of the fittest type situation, and they will
Yeah.
do whatever they need to do in order to be the providers that they were told they had to be.
Mm. Okay, and that actually you kind of answered the next question I asked. Do you feel that there's a direct correlation between the mental health
Mhm.
of our black men and the stigma that men have to always be so strong that they
Mhm.
cannot show any weakness? And it's like I feel like this. I'm not saying that men. Okay, so I do feel like there is a certain level. I'm not saying men should just be out in the street walking up to
Right,
strangers crying, right?
right,
Not what I'm saying.
right, right,
But I
right.
do feel like that at least your home and your
Mhm.
family should be a
Mhm.
safe place, right?
Mhm.
If
Yes.
I'm going through something, I feel like I should be able to go to my wife and
Yes.
cry on her shoulder to
Yes.
release these things and to let them go, right? So,
Right.
uh, is there a direct correlation between our black men and the whole mental health thing, whole mental health issue, that we always just have to be so strong in front of
Yes.
everybody, right?
Yes. Yes.
Not
Yes.
I ain't saying you go around your boys and bust out crying,
Right.
but at
Right.
least your family, right?
Yes, yes. Well, you would think, but now if you look at our community, the Black community as a whole, you look at that, the Black woman, unfortunately, is one of the most disregarded people that there are. So then now you have her dealing with her own outside issues as well. And so because she's dealing with that, the other people may not understand, it is going to be very difficult for her to be comfort that the Black man is needing after he's been out fighting the world all day, and what that looks like for a Black man to fight the world all day, and then to come home to not a welcoming place, to a place where now he's dealing with this woman who is disregarded, or also feeling like she has to prove herself over and beyond what her other counterparts have had to do. The same for the Black male, but there's a danger component for the Black men that's in place, not just the stereotypes and the stigma that are there that you're fighting, but then you have that danger component from I won't touch on this too much, but from the people who are supposed to protect us. And we don't really have, the Black man is kind of looking like, who's here for me other than myself? If everyone is angry with me or fearful of me, and then I get home and my home base is the same because the counterpart's not there, it makes it very difficult. And
Yeah.
so it really does. And so the more support and resources that it is, again, for in our community, for people to have people who would understand and that's able to relate, and that's huge in terms of picking out a therapist. Sometimes people go and that click didn't happen, and so they just automatically say, okay, well, it's not it for me. And no, that may not necessarily been the case. That just might not have been the right therapist for you. I have found that it is more, I am able to relate more to people who have real life issues than the people who have issues that I wouldn't know what it was like to have millions of dollars and my kid is not respectful to me, and my wife just wants to spend money. That's a huge part of the taboo that was placed years ago of who goes to therapy. Only the white people go to therapy, and that's not the case. I couldn't really help that person necessarily because I can't relate to that. But I can help my sisters. I can help my brothers because I understand what their life is like. I have either experienced on some level or I know someone very close to me who has. And so the relatability in that is very important. And so I'm really glad to see that there are more, we live in a celebrity based society, but there are more celebrities that are standing up and speaking on it and saying that they've had therapy or therapy that's helped them. Tahaji P. Henson, she has a great podcast show that's out, and she went and stood in front of Congress to reform mental health and all of that for the Black community. So it's coming. It is being, it's becoming more acceptable. Once you put certain celebrities on it, it's like, okay, so the more, if that has to be the route for right now, if that has to be the catalyst to get it going, well then so be it. Let's have more Black men, more Black women that are coming out, that are in the public eye to say, I went to therapy and it has helped me. It's not as bad as we think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. My uncle just texted me.
Hmm.
I'm working with him. He's not, he's still working. He's doing good as far as
Okay.
like getting on YouTube and things like that. So I'm trying to work with him on how to actually post that on YouTube, and then I can show it on the screen. But we still working with him. He gonna get there. But he said,
Okay.
he asked, as a therapist,
Hmm.
which one is easier to work with, men or women? He said, I know some men try to be strong and not show any
Hmm.
signs of weakness. So
Hmm.
I think what he's saying is, is it harder to work with men because they have this glass around them, this
Hmm.
protective shield, or
Hmm.
what? I'll let you answer that.
Just initially, once you break that though, once you get that, once that rapport is set, and that rapport is set from the moment they tell you something that most people, would we have this saying, clutch their pearls about. And so if you don't shudder in that,
Mm-hmm.
then right away they become open books because they've been holding it in. just like you said, you don't walk up and cry with your boys and tell your boys. Well, but women do that. We get our girlfriends on the phone and we will cry all the time to our girlfriends. We will call with every little thing. And so once that initial lid is taken off and they feel that relief and talking about it and there's no judgment there and they know that, they become an open book. They really become an open book, and they are not at that point trying to be so macho and guarded anymore, So once there's some reassurance with that they're not going to be emasculated or judged for some things, once that reassurance is there, it's on. They are talking and they are getting to the root, getting down, digging down instead of just cutting those weeds off at the top. So I would, it is a little bit more just initially, like I said, just initially. But once that rapport set, it's quite easy.
And I can imagine for you that it has to be very fulfilling to help somebody. When you see that glass break and those men start opening up and letting it fly. I just can imagine that has to be like one of the most fulfilling feelings ever.
It is. That's what kept me going back. That's what kept me going, Yeah, but like I said earlier, it's therapeutic for me as well, to have those human exchanges like that and someone trust you with things that they've held on for years, and then to see how that's not affecting them anymore, to know you had something to do with it. And for me, I always consider myself as a vessel. I go into situations and I'm not. One of the main things that I would not do with the inmates was I would not read their charges and why they were there. I did not initially before I started. I wanted to go in with no preconceived notions, no judgment, no bias, and it's hard not to do so once you read something. It's just like reading a review of a movie or of an album, and then from that person's perspective. And so I know in the judicial system how things are, how they have to be worded and that sort of thing, and people are made to look to the worst possible way, protect whatever they were charged for. So the only thing that I would want to know would be what pod they were located in, and that pod would determine for me, okay, well, this might not be something that I might not, let me give this to one of my coworkers, because you want to be the most objective, you want to be the most helpful to them. And so, and you can't, as a therapist, you can't unhear things. I cannot unhear that session anymore. And so, I had to be mindful of how that may affect me. But overall, I would not read. And so that was one of the first things when we would get in and I would start to ask them some questions about why they were there. And they were like, well, you don't know, you didn't read my, and they would rattle off what the different acronyms are for certain things. And I say, no, I didn't. And they would be like, oh my God, you're the first one that didn't do that. And I said, no, because I wanted to get to know you as a person first, not these charges. That's not the overall of who you are as a human being. And so that helped me and it helped them, because it was a new experience for both of us. It was a genuine moment, and they were able to say, but they knew I had access. So if they didn't want to tell me the truth, they knew I had access to what was written down about them, and I just chose not to read it at the time. Yeah.
Wow. So so my uncle also asked, he said, who comes to you most for help, men or women? And so this is, of course, outside of the jail and detention. So just as a therapist, is most of your clientele men or women or couples?
It's equal between the men and the women, actually. So so a lot of the inmates that, and I haven't worked, I've stopped working in jail back in November, into November, COVID and all those different things took effect. But I have a lot of the inmates who got out and they contacted me, and I'm still in contact with them to this day. A lot of them write me if they had to go to prison, they still will write me and be in contact with me. So I would say it's pretty equal with both, but the men definitely, and then the women, they're not women. There were a lot of younger girls. So when I say younger, meaning 18 to early 20s,
Okay.
that was a big part of my female clientele. and I am still in contact with them as well. So,
Wow.
and even extended family members, if not the actual inmate themselves, but the extended family members will reach out and need some guidance or give me updates on them. So, but I would still probably have to say the men, because I just had more, and that was just
Mm.
due to the population, due to the population. But
Yeah.
yeah, but both,
Well, I
but
mean,
younger age somewhere.
yeah, and I think that's probably because with you creating such a safe space, word gets out.
Hmm. Hmm. It
You
does.
need to go talk to her,
Yes. Yes.
and
That's exactly
she
what
creates
happened.
a safe space. So yeah, that's
Hmm.
wow.
Hmm. That's funny that you say that. That's exactly how that went. And a lot of inmates that would sign up for me, they would say, "Well, such and such said I needed to come talk to you. That I could talk to you about this, and I really wasn't interested in this, or I came in here fully prepared to not talk or to just
Mhm.
run game, just so that I could be out of the pot and out of the cell." And then, almost immediately, just a couple minutes in, they realize, okay, well, no, this can really help. This is not a game. Let's do this.
Mm.
Yeah. And so word of mouth in the jail cell is huge.
So I just thought about this question. I didn't have it on the list.
Hmm.
I don't want to put you on the spot. I'll throw it out there.
Hmm.
Okay, so with with you being the receiver of
Hmm.
all of this, I can imagine a lot of it can be negative, and how do
Hmm.
you not take that home to your husband and your son
Hmm.
and your
Hmm.
fam, like, or just even to yourself,
Hmm.
like how do you, I mean, maybe this is for somebody out there who maybe is looking to go into therapy. How do
Hmm.
you separate these things? I can imagine that has to be something, there has to be something you do. Otherwise, I
Yes.
can just imagine you would just kind of pop, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Well, yes, and you know what? It is almost nearly impossible for you not to take that home. So first of all, let
Mm,
me say that. And so I wouldn't even want to put out there that, oh, just do this or just do that, and you don't take it
yeah.
home. No, absolutely not. Those things do have an effect on you. Self-care is huge. As a therapist, it is mandatory for therapists to get therapy as well. But
Mm,
we're kind of the ones who don't do it as often, because we're so inundated on the other side that we have to
yeah.
be reminded, which is why it's forced for us to get it as well. So having someone else who is in the same profession as you, whether it's a supervisor, whether it's another therapist, whatever, to kind of offload that, or trade, exchange and energies with that, so to speak.
Mm,
That's the number one thing to be able to do, because people say that, well, who do you talk to? And sometimes I will talk to people who aren't in the field, but it is a little difficult for them to understand all aspects of it.
mm,
Number one. The other thing is self-care. Part of my self-care, though, is that I am very, very adamant and very mindful of what I allow myself to see and hear and receive outside of work. And so
mm,
one of the lessons that I learned in church from the pastor years ago is that it's very important for us to guard our eye gate, our ear gate, and our heart gate, and our mind gate,
mm,
because if you don't guard those things, then it's
mm,
adding to it. And so for me, I don't watch the news. That is very
mm,
fear based, and it drives up anxiety, because they have to go off, what we're going to get the audience in. So I don't watch it, because that creates anxiety. That's for me. I don't do
mm,
that. There are
mm,
certain shows on television that may be very popular, that people are watching. But if that's a trigger for me, or if that's a compounded thing on top of what was in work for me, I won't watch it. I won't do it. So
mm.
whether that's movies or TV shows, even music, or certain things that trigger, and you have to be cognitive of your triggers, and addressing them and or avoiding them if need be. And so I'm huge on not doing that. I am a big component on recharging. So I will go into what they call hermit mode, and I will shut down and shut the world off,
Mm, mhm,
all energies off, to be able to recharge on my own and not keep getting pulled at, or things tossed to me.
Yeah.
So I have to be mindful of that, and I would just shut out, and retreat, so to
Hmm.
speak. That's huge. One of the things that there are other things that are therapeutic to me. So whether that's some form of exercise that I find that's therapeutic, which is dancing formats for me, I do that. With baths, anything, and
Hmm.
I just keep adding to my toolbox as well. Meditation, quiet, and prayer time, just to release those things, because, like I said, once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And I know where money's buried, drugs, bodies, all of it. So
Hmm.
it's you have to, it's almost like an attorney. Them knowing some of that stuff is like, oh my goodness, like stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, so self care is huge, and that's different for everybody. And so for me, I just rattled off a few for you. So that's how I do it, and it's easier
Yeah.
said than done as well.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna say, oh, it's just some. No, some days I
Right.
fail at it. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. I was a huge fan of The Sopranos, the TV show The
Mhm.
Sopranos, and
Mhm.
basically the premise is this: the head of this mob family was seeing a
Mhm.
therapist, right?
Mhm.
And it was funny that
Mhm.
she was seeing a therapist.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, wow,
Yes.
I never thought about that. Like, where do you
Yes.
all go for help?
Yes.
The movie Superman, right? The original
Mhm.
one from whatever was it, 78 or whatever year that was,
Decades
with
ago. Yes.
Christopher Reeve. But there was a point where Lois Lane fell off of a building or out of a helicopter or something, and Superman caught her, and she
Mhm.
was looking like, well, if you're holding me, who's holding you?
That's right. Yep.
And we're
Yep.
not
Yep.
we're not Superman and women, right?
No. No, we're not.
Superman didn't need anybody to hold him because he was Superman, right?
Mhm.
We're not
Mhm.
Superman and women, so we do
Yes.
need someone. So I think that's excellent that you
Yes.
have those things that you do
Mhm.
to separate that,
Yes. Yes.
and
And you have to.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So now my uncle had another question, and then because
Mhm.
I'm almost done with my questions here, but
Okay.
and this kind of leads into what we were just talking about. He said, when you're helping a person or a couple, is it hard to keep your feelings separated or from getting involved?
Well, there's a term to that, and it's called counter transparency. Being counter transparent or transparency, and that is when your own experience in life now in turns entwines with what's happening with you, with what the client or the couple is telling you. So, as a human being, I would answer that question first. Those things are going to come up. Those feelings, if you experienced anything that was remotely close to what that couple was talking about, they will obviously come up. But then you have to, it's more so going back to you where you're like, okay, so let me take this experience and let me put in turn with what the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, what I know would have probably been the better outcome in this situation. And I didn't do that. And when I was in that
Mhm.
situation, or what I learned from it, rather, again, what to do or what not to do. So if you take those feelings and you apply it that way, it instantly makes it easier. There is a saying that those who can do and those who can't teach. So
Mhm.
so for
Mhm.
me, in terms of parenthood, that was great. In terms of relationships, well, and I was just blessed that my kid came out the womb good, so I can't even take all of that credit. And then plus the village here that has helped raise him, your auntie, that
Yes.
definitely played a role. But in terms of that other side, in terms of being an ideal mate at times, or conducting myself accordingly. So it's real easy for me to be like, oh, no, Tanya, definitely don't go off what you did. Let's go off what Jesus would do. Not what, not what Jesus did. So it's easy for me to be like, oh, nope, yeah, no, Missy, no, Karen, don't do that. Don't say that to him, no, ma'am. Just pick those clothes up. Don't be. That's your problem if the clothes is on the floor. He doesn't have an issue with it. Just pick them up, put them in the hamper, and keep it moving. No need to ruin the day because your
Right.
husband left his pants on the bed.
Right.
30 seconds for you to put him away and leave that man alone. Be glad he's at home. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It's good, and I'm glad that you're being so candid because a lot of people will just kind of answer with the professional. Oh yes, you can separate but you're being honest. It's not. It can't be. It can't be easy to separate your emotions from this. If it were, then you would not be in demand as much because people would feel that disconnect.
exactly, exactly. And I will tell you this little secret since I'm being candid. When you said, well, I didn't write this question down, but I'm gonna just throw this out here and answer it.
Mhm,
When you sent me questions, I
mhm,
read them
mhm,
and I closed it up. I put it to the side. I
mhm.
didn't think about the answers. I didn't do anything. It is a lot better for me to
Gotcha.
to not overthink these things and answer in my most genuine, authentic way. If I have to filter it just slightly, then I'll do so. But I
Mhm,
never, I don't want to rehearse what I'm gonna say. I have to be in the moment. So it goes back to the same thing where I wouldn't read their charges, and that
mhm,
sort of thing,
mhm,
so that I can be as transparent and as authentic as possible. There's someone that I follow on Facebook. His name is MJ Malcolm, and he said this thing to me, and it just resonated so much. And once that really started to resonate with me, and I really used that more so in the jail setting than I ever have before. And he
mhm,
said, through transparency comes transformation. And
mhm.
that is, the more transparent I am, the more that I'm like, oh, I went through similar things. I experienced this. This is what happened. This is what didn't. That allows my transformation, but that allows people to say, oh, well, I can talk about this then. I can really talk about this. And it's going to be okay one way or the other.
Mhm. I'm
Yep.
trying to write that down, but I'm not a great
Okay.
typer. Well, I said again, through transparency comes transformation.
Transformation.
I
Yep.
like that. That is awesome.
Yep.
That is awesome.
Yeah, when I heard
Well,
him say that, and it just went off in my head, I'm like, whoa, that is true. Because we're, as therapists, we're actually told not to disclose a
mm,
lot about ourselves, but that is what makes it difficult for people not to open up. Of course, you do that within reason. You don't go just regurgitating, spilling out everything, but in reason, just so that people know that they're actually interacting in a human experience and not this therapist judging them for their issues that they're there for. Because I'm a human being first. I tell people that all the time. People sometimes expect perfection from me or from my behavior to not be that of unappealing at times sometimes. But and I would say, well, I was born in 1971. I didn't graduate from school as a therapist until 2011. There's a lot of years of human experience that
yeah.
took place. So I'm a human being first, and and that's a flawed human being, and so I go from that.
Listen, I appreciate you. I just, right before I let you go, I wrote down here
Hmm.
for you to just take a minute and talk to our black men out there, right? Because I had another
Right.
question,
Hmm.
but you answered it. Is it
Okay.
okay for men to cry? And you can kind of add this into your final remarks here, but just take a minute and talk to our black men out there
Hmm. Okay.
about the importance of seeking help, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
to our black women
Hmm.
about supporting them if
Hmm.
and when they choose to receive that help, and vice versa. So I'll just let you kind
Hmm.
of have the last
Okay.
words here and just take your time and talk to
Right.
us.
Take my time. Okay. Well, in terms of the black men out there, for black men, and like I mentioned earlier, you are constantly fighting the world, and then oftentimes having to come home and fight. So you are in this state of battle all the time. So to be able to, I'm sorry, to be able to put your sword down and do that in a safe environment will help aid you in not experiencing a lot of the PTSD that takes place. And people oftentimes attribute PTSD to something that traumatic happened, or it's attached to soldiers, people that were in the military and who saw horrific things. But PTSD for Black men, again, can happen just from being pulled over for a minor traffic infraction, and that within itself, which the world that we're in right away, experiencing a lot of these things that we see on TV, we don't even have to experience ourselves, but to see something on TV and then potentially be put in a similar circumstance, God forbid, but to do that right in there, those feelings come up, PTSD of an absent father or an absent mother, and oftentimes, it's things are spoken about in terms of people having daddy issues, but having mommy issues, that's another whole monster. And then that in turn goes out until how you treat and interact with women, and then with the women that are in your home, because we as human beings tend to pick our parents, whether that's right, good, or bad, or indifferent sometimes, now as an adult to pick someone who exhibits some of those same characteristics, because it was you can find comfort and function in dysfunction. And so because it's familiar, then I know how to handle that. I know how to handle this woman or this coworker that acts this way, because my mother was that way or my sister was that way. And so again, to be able to go into a place where you can put those swords down, because men are constantly at battle all day. So to be able to have that just for a moment in time to feel that reprieve is going to help to recharge you and give you some tools and give you some more to go back into battle. When you look at the war movies, even in the wars, they take a break sometimes. And so you have to, and so you have to look at therapy in that regard. And so it's so important to add that to your self-care, to add that as a resource for you to use. For our women, again, it's quieting some of the conditioning that we got that's been passed down from generation, just like the men, and so he's got too many emotions. I don't want that. Well, you do too, and so it is a human emotion, and not just one from a man or women. So to realize like, wow, well, yeah, my husband could experience that. Why couldn't he? If I do, and so again, it's removing yourself out of yourself, getting out of self for a minute and standing in someone else's shoes and realizing, well, they're a human being at the core of it all. And so being more open, but the more we are, that old saying, you treat people the way you want to be treated, that sort of thing, the more we operate in that, the easier it will be. So the more men operate in the fact that they want to be received with their emotions and want to be heard. So if they in turn do that for their wife, be a sounding board for their wife and listen to certain things, and that helps. I read something one day, and it's two things. So one, a friend of mine and I, we used to always do this, and so we'd get on the phone and she would say, "Okay, I'm up to bat." And what that meant is that she just wanted to vent. And she didn't necessarily want me to have a solution or have a problem. And men are solution based. If they're hearing their wife talk about certain things, they're listening from the aspect, okay, how can I fix this? And so sometimes they come off as being impatient and they're like, hurry up, get to the end of the story, or what's the outcome, because you're wanting to solve it. And so I read this one day, and I probably botched it up a little bit, but it says, okay, it said when you come into a situation as a couple, and when someone started talking, they would first start it off with this disclaimer. And even in a family setting, it's, are we listening or are we solving? Is this something you just want to be heard about? You just want to complain about what happened in your day, or do you want me to provide you with a potential different outcome for this? And so if you're just listening, then it is just that, just listening. I'm just venting, just getting it off. There's none for you to fix. There's none I want you to fix. And the minute you disarm the man with that, then he can now just listen. He doesn't have to be on this, it's like defensive driving. You can't just positively drive in 5 o'clock rush hour traffic, because you're not only driving, but you're trying to pay attention to what the person on the right doing, the person on the left, the person that's getting ready to cross in front of you. So you can't just take this leisure Sunday cruise, So it's the same thing communicating. So once you know your role in that exchange and my role is just to listen, well, okay, I can do that. And I
Yeah.
have this saying that I read this on a wall at a school when I worked I used to be a high school presenter in Georgia, but then also when I moved to Vegas too. But I want to say it's by Frederick Douglass, but please don't quote me. But this stuck with me too, and it said that listen and silent are spelled with the same letters, and you have to do one in order to do the other.
Mm.
And so the more silent that we get, so that we could just listen to people and not take it, not internalize it, not try to solve it, not try to anything, but just being there for them to just listen. Then that's it. And so, like I said, for me, um, I knew early off, especially being in detention centers, that God is using me as a vessel. And so I just listen and then apply what needs to be applied. Oftentimes people come to therapy thinking that I'm going to have the answers for you, when the answer is really just you being heard and understood. And that's the answer. Mhm.
Wow. Well, listen, Tanya, I truly, truly appreciate you and your wealth of wisdom. Um, I'm getting a lot of comments and likes, and
Okay.
everybody, I'm sure that they really, really enjoyed you and everything that you brought to the table. Thank you so, so much. I want to put your information up to make sure that
Okay.
people are able to contact you if
Yes.
need be. You can give
Yes.
her a call at 702-523-0561, or you
Yes.
can email her at TanyaTroup@gmail.com. I do have her email address in the description on YouTube as well as Facebook. So her email address is there. You can reach out to her. Again, give her a call at 702-523-0561, or email her at TanyaTroup@gmail.com. Make sure that
Yes.
you get in touch with her so that you would, someone safe that you
Hmm.
can open up to and talk to, especially men who need that help. Someone says,
Yes.
excellent show, good information. Thank you, Tanya, for your work of love. So I,
Thank
I,
you.
I think
Thank
that
you.
that sums it up. That was my
That
mom.
does. Oh, thank you, Mom. Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, that's that. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate you having me on. My momager is what I call her, your auntie, setting this up,
Ah,
because I just really started to venture out on my own just as of November. And so, doing being a travel therapist, as my son calls it, and being able to provide one-on-one therapy to whomever. That's great. I would like to say that for anyone who chooses to email me,
mhm.
that if they could for a minute to text me first and say, hey, this is such such, and I sent you an email, because I have 18,000 emails, and
Ah,
and it might get lost in the shuffle if I don't recognize if I don't recognize the name. I'm trying to get better with that. I am, but I'm
right.
not quite there yet. This is new, so I'm getting there. So quick text, and then also keep in mind I am on Pacific Standard Time, so I am 3 hours behind
Right,
behind the
right.
East Coast. Yes, so there might be some delay in that as well. But I'm working on all of that. I'm becoming quite flexible with my time zones and tech support
Right.
technology. I can click on and get some shoes or some clothes real quick, but all this other stuff. Well, you were part of it with us earlier today, so yeah. So I'm getting there. I'm gonna take a few classes and
Awesome.
get there. Yes.
Again, Tanya, thank you so, so much. You all heard her. Make sure you text her first. Let her know that you're shooting her an email, and then that way she
Yes.
could be looking out. And Tanya, thank you so,
Yes.
so much for coming on and blessing us.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you. We honor you as a Black woman who is a marriage and family therapist. That is a huge accomplishment. You
Yes.
have several degrees. You have worked hard, and I'm just praying that you continue to see the fruit of your labor.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This was a pleasure. This was awesome, and Anytime. Let me know. We got to talk about some other stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
I definitely want to bring you back on the show, and we'll talk.
Okay.
You have so many areas of expertise that we can just make sure that we uh, bring you back on
Okay. All
several
right.
times.
Several times. Well, I'm here for it. Thank you.
Yes,
This was great. All
yes.
right.
Mr.
Hello to the
James Galt
wife.
said very informative and helpful. Thank you, Mr. Galt. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you. Yes, this was a pleasure. This was great. And hello to the wife, to your right hand and your left hand,
yes,
and the almost 6-month-old baby boy. I know how
yes.
excited you get. The time goes by so fast. I'm like, my son will be 25 this year, and I'm like, how are you 25? I'm still 25.
Right, exactly.
What
Exactly.
happened? So enjoy that time because it is great. You guys.
Yes, ma'am. Again,
Yes.
thank you so much, and we'll be in
Okay.
contact.
Okay. Thank you.
All righty.
Good night. All right. Bye.
Good night. Oh my God. Thank you so much to our guest tonight, Tanya. Again, you can give her a call at 702-523-0561 or shoot her an email, TanyaTroup@gmail.com. Again, remember, she is on Pacific Standard Time. So they're 3 hours behind us in the Detroit area. So don't, you know, if you text her at 9 a.m., it'll be 6 a.m. there. So just wait a little later in the afternoon to shoot her a text. But, just let her know, reach out to her and make sure that you use this wealth of knowledge that God has truly, truly blessed her with. And yeah, so make sure you reach out to her and get some information on counseling, especially if you're a man out there. We were talking about men and mental health, especially in the Black community. So make sure that you reach out to Mrs. Troup. Again, 702-523-0561 or email TanyaTroup@gmail.com. One more time, you can reach out to her mom. Her mom makes custom jewelry. So you can go to her website, customdesignsbylinda.com. If your significant other has a birthday or anniversary coming up or whatever, Valentine's Day just passed, you can get a late Valentine's Day gift, but make sure that you go to her website or give her a call at 888-443-7773. Schedule your free 20-minute consultation. Let her know what you need. She'll let you know how much and how much time she needs to make it. And you can definitely mention my name or mention Quarantine with Lavell, and she will give you that nephew's discount. Our sponsor for this month is Inspire God's People. So make sure you go to that website, inspiregodspeople.com. Check out my boy Jay Will on Instagram at Inspire God's People or at Mr._Bellwether, or just go to YouTube and type in J Will Music. He has inspirational nuggets on there daily. So make sure that you check that out. Also, finally, if you would like to be a sponsor for the show, you can just email me at kneeldownproductions1@gmail.com, kneeldownproductions1@gmail.com, and I'll let you know what you need to do to become a sponsor for the show. And as always, if you would like to be a support to the show, you can do that through PayPal. You can just type in at Kneel Down Productions on PayPal. You'll see the Kneel Down Productions logo pop up. Or you can go to Cash App, and it's $Kneel Down Pro. $Kneel Down Pro. You'll see our logo pop up, and you can give to us through Cash App, or you can just go to our website, www.kneeldownproductions.com. And I believe there's a tab on there that says donate or something to that effect, and you can give right there on the website. All of these sites are secure. PayPal, Cash App, and the Kneel Down Productions website are all secure, so make sure that you check those out. Listen, next week, we remember last month, every month we're going to do a segment called Defense Thursdays. So last month we dealt with the topic of how can we know God exists. And we had a lot of fun doing that. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. And this next topic that we are going to have is no different. It is definitely going to be something. It's a lot of work. I've been working on it for the last few weeks, actually. I'm still working on it. But the topic is, I wanted to deal with this for Black History Month, is does the Bible condone slavery? Right? There are a lot of memes out there. I'm going to pull up one right here. I thought this was really interesting, and we'll talk about it on the show. But it says that God could have banned slavery or shellfish, but he chose shellfish, right? So the question is, does the Bible condone slavery? So we're going to be dealing with that next week for Black History Month on the Defense Thursdays segment. We're going to do that once a month. We're going to deal with some tough issues and some tough topics. So I'm really, really excited, especially now that I've been really studying up on this. And I truly believe that it's going to help you to give an answer to every man concerning the faith that you have. Again, thank you so much for joining us on this segment of Quarantine with Lavell. My guest was Tanya Troup. And again, here's her information. You can give her a call, 702-523-0561, or email her at TanyaTroup@gmail.com. Make sure you reach out to her and get some information. We appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. Thank you all so much for your faithfulness. And make sure that you join us next week on another episode of Quarantine with Lavell, where we'll be doing Defense Thursdays about does the Bible condone slavery? And we'll see you on the show.